Prince Edward's announcement about bidding farewell to Buckingham Palace has sent shock waves across the royal circle and beyond. What could have compelled him, the youngest child of the late Queen Elizabeth II, to make such a momentous decision? Is it personal freedom he seeks, an inner rift with other members of his family, or another step into the redefined roles of today's royalty? Join us as we explore the layers of this surprising development, delving into the motivations, implications, and what this means for the future of the House of Windsor. The announcement that shocked everyone came from Prince Edward, the youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, who has always stood apart from his royal siblings. It's difficult, really, to explain what it is to be together as a family for the first time. It was just wonderful. Born on March 10, 1964, at Buckingham Palace, Edward was raised in the public eye but often preferred a quieter, more behind-the-scenes role in the monarchy. Unlike his elder brothers, King Charles III and Prince Andrew, Edward steered away from a traditional military career. Instead, he chose to forge a path in the arts and media. After graduating from Cambridge University with a degree in history, Edward briefly worked at the theatre company founded by Andrew Lloyd Webber before establishing his own production company, Ardent Productions, in 1993. Although his company faced criticism for its management and content, Edward's ventures highlighted his desire to carve out an independent identity. This is where things start to get interesting. Personally, Edward has always been driven by his own ideas and ambitions. Running his company, trying to find new ideas, and, in the long term, producing projects, gave him a sense of ownership over his career. In 1999, he married Sophie Rhys-Jones, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, but the niceties of royal lineage were probably the last thing on their minds when they made their first public appearance as husband and wife. Over the years, the couple became prominent figures in the royal family. Edward took on numerous royal duties and eventually became the Earl of Wessex. Later, he ascended to the title of Duke of Edinburgh following his father's passing. His role within the monarchy expanded, but his understated demeanor often contrasted with the headline-grabbing actions of other royals. In a surprising move, Prince Edward recently announced his decision to step back from Buckingham Palace, signaling a shift in his royal trajectory. It has been a bit of a shock. However much one tries to prepare oneself for something like this, it's still a dreadful shock, and we are still trying to come to terms with it. It's very, very sad. Such actions by him are not new, but they are shocking. This is because, in a decision that surprised many and broke with family tradition, Prince Edward, Queen Elizabeth's youngest son, once stepped away from a future in the Royal Marines at just 22 years old. Edward had been undergoing rigorous training in hopes of earning the prestigious Green Beret of the Royal Marines, Britain's elite military unit. However, after serving 4 challenging months of a year-long officer training course, he chose to resign. This move came after much personal deliberation and an intense family discussion. Buckingham Palace confirmed his decision, stating that Edward had resigned after much consideration and with significant regret, having concluded that the Marines were not the right fit for his long-term aspirations. The palace also mentioned that no announcement about his plans was imminent. Edward's resignation followed a weekend summit at the royal family's Sandringham estate in Norfolk. There, he presented his case during what was reportedly a difficult conversation involving the Queen, his father Prince Philip, his elder brothers Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, and Princess Diana. While none of the family members were reported to have supported his choice, Edward stood firm, explaining that continuing in a career he disliked would leave him feeling trapped. Shortly after this meeting, Edward returned to his training base at Limestone in southwestern England, where he formally handed in his resignation and uniform to his commanding officer. "It's what actually happened this morning," said one officer. Prince Edward came and said goodbye to his batch officers in the officers' mess, then went to say goodbye to the other officers in the mess. "We shook him warmly by the hand, wished him very well, and he wished us well." Prince Philip, who held the honorary title of Captain General of the Marines, was said to have been particularly displeased by a decision that some perceived as a rejection of the royal family's strong military tradition. Edward's father and both of his brothers held commissions in the Royal Navy, which made his choice all the more significant. The prince's struggles became public knowledge when London newspapers highlighted his predicament a week before his resignation. During that period, a poll revealed that most Britons believed Edward should be allowed to leave if that was his wish, reflecting a wave of public support for the young royal's autonomy. Edward's departure from a path so deeply rooted in his family legacy raised questions, but for him, the answer was clear: personal fulfillment. Reports suggested he was considering a career in theatre, a passion that sharply contrasted with the rigid structure of military life. Despite the pressure and disapproval from his family, Edward chose to prioritize his happiness and aspirations over tradition. Was this a sign of weakness, as some critics suggested, or an act of courage in defying expectations? The answer lies in Edward's ability to stand firm against immense pressure and make a decision true to himself, a move that resonates with those who value authenticity over convention. This unexpected decision left many speculating about Edward's motivations. Buckingham Palace, a symbol of the monarchy's enduring presence, has long been the epicenter of royal life, making Edward's departure all the more significant. Reports indicated that Edward and his wife, Sophie, plan to focus on their residence at Bagshot Park, located in Surrey. Their decision came amid broader changes within the royal family as King Charles III continued to streamline the monarchy and redefine its role in modern Britain. Edward's departure may reflect his desire to support the king's vision while maintaining a more personal, family-oriented lifestyle. Edward's decision raises questions about the evolving nature of royal responsibilities and the balance between public duty and personal life. His choice followed a precedent set by other royals, such as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who redefined their roles within the family. However, unlike Harry's dramatic exit, Edward's move appeared to be a quiet transition rather than a break from royal life. He remained committed to his royal duties, including his involvement with the Duke of Edinburgh's award and various patronages. His departure symbolized a subtle yet impactful shift, reflecting the monarchy's efforts to adapt to contemporary expectations while respecting the individuality of its members. As Edward bid farewell to Buckingham Palace, his next steps became a subject of intrigue. By focusing on family life and charitable endeavors, he continued to embody the values of dedication and service instilled by Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. However, the question remained: what makes a person want to leave behind everything Buckingham Palace represents? The constant criticism, pressure, and lack of freedom tied to royal life could be stifling. For Edward, the judgment he faced while trying to build a life outside the royal family was relentless. Every mistake was magnified, and his family and the public rarely let him forget it. Coupled with the media's harsh spotlight and family tensions, the rigid rules and high expectations of royal life could feel suffocating to someone striving for independence. Edward's attempt to leave royal life and establish himself in the entertainment industry was bold and tumultuous. He had long been captivated by the allure of show business. As he once said, he loved the glamour and fantasy of the industry and wanted to inspire others to engage in a variety of activities. Edward's early ventures into entertainment revealed both his passion and ambition, but were not without controversy. At Cambridge, he participated in school plays, and later, he produced the Grand Knockout Tournament. These endeavors highlighted his determination to pursue a unique path, despite the challenges and scrutiny he faced. In 1987, a charity event was ridiculed as the single most damaging attack on the royal family since Cromwell. During this time, the tantalizingly eligible Prince Edward faced considerable public scrutiny. Undeterred, Edward joined Andrew Lloyd Webber's Really Useful Group and co-founded a theatrical production company in 1990. However, the venture failed within a year, accumulating £600,000 in debt. In 1993, Edward took his most daring step yet by launching Ardent Productions, a company he claimed symbolized ambition, motivation, and strength. His vision was to produce serious arts, drama, and documentaries for British television. Edward downplayed his royal connections, insisting Ardent would avoid creating royal-themed programs. His business card simply read, Edward Windsor, Joint Managing Director. Despite this, the entertainment industry was skeptical, viewing him as a prince playing at being a producer, and he faced considerable jealousy and scrutiny. Even his family expressed doubts, with Prince Philip reportedly quipping, "Why doesn't Edward let the TV people get on with it and just turn up to accept the checks?" He further stated that Edward was making the royal family look foolish. These misgivings seemed justified as Ardent struggled in its early years. The company's first production, Real Tennis, a documentary on an obscure aristocratic sport, drew only 8,000 viewers. Its next effort, the political satire Annie's Bar, was cancelled after one season and panned as fifth-rate. Faced with mounting criticism and financial losses, Edward pivoted. In 1996, he hosted Edward on Edward, a documentary about his great-uncle Edward VIII. Though critics mocked it for lacking insight and originality, the program performed surprisingly well. However, Edward's decision to lean into his royal connections invited further backlash. Journalists accused him of hypocrisy, and competitors in the industry resented the palace support Ardent received, such as exclusive footage and interviews with senior royals. Edward's challenges weren't confined to his company. His wife Sophie faced scandals of her own, including being duped in 2001 by a fake sheikh posing as a PR client. This, coupled with Edward's controversies, led to a review of royal business dealings. By 2001, the royal family issued stricter guidelines for working royals engaging in commercial ventures. Ardent's most significant misstep came in 2000 when it began producing Royalty AZ, a series for E! Covering the Windsor family's history, including recent sensitive events. This infuriated Prince Charles, especially when it emerged that Ardent had filmed near Prince William during his time at St. Andrews. Charles reportedly exploded, calling Edward a negative name. Public criticism of Ardent reached a fever pitch, with some branding it a vanity project and a sad joke. By 2002, Edward conceded defeat, stepping down from Ardent, citing the Queen's Golden Jubilee and increased royal duties as his reasons. Despite his optimistic farewell statement, Ardent limped on briefly before being liquidated in 2009 and officially dissolved in 2011 with just £40,027 remaining. Though his dream of media success ended, Edward and Sophie eventually found their footing as full-time working royals, respected for their dedication. In the years following the Queen's death, Prince Andrew's scandals, and Harry and Meghan's departure, Edward's struggles revealed the challenges of balancing royal identity with personal ambition, a lesson that may resonate with Harry and Meghan as they navigate their own post-royal ventures. As Edward once lamented, it's a no-win situation, so it doesn't matter which side of the fence you jump off. As the youngest of the Queen's 4 children, Edward's life at Buckingham Palace was both privileged and highly structured. Surrounded by the grandeur of royal living, he had a unique upbringing that balanced protocol with personal warmth. Buckingham Palace, both a home and the official residence of the monarch, provided a setting full of ceremonial duties and a high degree of discipline. Edward and his siblings, Charles and Andrew, were cared for by a retinue of nannies and staff while also being closely looked after by their parents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Despite their demanding schedules, the Queen and Prince Philip made time for family, often gathering in the private quarters of the palace for meals or evening chats. In Edward's early years, life at Buckingham Palace included grand state visits, but much of his time was spent playing in the palace's vast gardens. Encouraged to pursue his academic and artistic interests, Edward was educated privately before attending Gordonstoun School in Scotland, following in the footsteps of his father and brothers. His love for drama and theatre emerged early and continued to develop when he attended Cambridge University, where he earned a degree in history. After completing his studies, Edward returned to Buckingham Palace and began taking on royal duties while exploring a career in the arts. He worked briefly with the Andrew Lloyd Webber Theatre Company before founding Ardent Productions, a television production company. This decision set Edward apart from his siblings, as he uniquely blended creative pursuits with royal responsibilities. As a working royal, Buckingham Palace served as the hub of his duties, hosting receptions and attending official events. The palace also symbolized his private connections, and Edward lived there for periods before establishing his family home at Bagshot Park with his wife, Sophie, Countess of Wessex. Interestingly, Edward's childhood included challenges, particularly in his relationship with his older brother, Andrew. According to royal biographer Ingrid Seward, Andrew reportedly bullied Edward, often displaying domineering behavior. Despite this, Edward outshone Andrew academically and socially during their years at Gordonstoun, where Edward became head boy and earned a spot on the cricket first 11 team. Seward, in her 1993 book Royal Children, detailed the dynamic between the two brothers, who, being 4 years apart and much younger than their older siblings, Charles and Anne, faced less intense responsibilities as members of the royal family. Andrew, known for his boisterous nature and frequent tantrums, often exhibited competitive behavior, such as snatching treats intended for Edward. In contrast, Edward, described as a sweet and well-mannered child with delicate features, initially lived in Andrew's shadow during their early education under a governess at Buckingham Palace. While Andrew expressed frustration through outbursts, Edward internalized his emotions, often falling silent with a red face. As they matured, Edward distinguished himself through his achievements at Gordonstoun, excelling in sports, drama, and leadership. Meanwhile, Andrew pursued a military career, joining the Navy and achieving considerable success. Edward's path to Cambridge University, although marked by grades below the usual standard for admission, further highlighted his dedication to academics and personal growth. Although Edward initially planned to follow a similar path as his family by joining the Royal Marines, he withdrew from officer training after 4 months, opting for a different course in life. The news of his decision was naturally met with disappointment, but it was also met with respect and understanding. His Royal Highness's choice to pursue a private life marked a significant shift, raising questions about the challenges and realities this path would bring him. Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, and his wife Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, have been loyal supporters of the Crown, earning high regard from the late Queen Elizabeth II. Despite their significant roles within the royal family, they have worked diligently to maintain a low profile in their personal lives, making them less familiar to many royal fans compared to other high-profile family members. However, Edward is far from an enigma. His history reveals fascinating and complex dimensions, including rumored sibling feuds, disagreements over royal titles, and a strained relationship with the press. These aspects hint at the layers behind a man who is often misunderstood. Over the years, Edward has taken on increasing responsibilities, becoming a core member of the royal family. His ability to balance tradition, duty, and a desire for privacy is notable. One of the most visible aspects of royal duty is public engagement, particularly the practice of mingling with the public during events, a tradition popularized by Queen Elizabeth II. Royals like Princess Diana and Kate Middleton embraced this practice, often greeting subjects with a handshake. However, Edward has chosen to deviate from this norm. While he waves and speaks to crowds, he avoids shaking hands, explaining that it allows him to engage with more people in the limited time available. This decision underscores his unique approach to royal duties, balancing tradition with personal efficiency. Edward's personal life, particularly his relationship with Sophie, also reflects his commitment to balance and discretion. The couple's story began in 1987 when they met at Capital Radio, where Sophie was working in public relations. They reconnected years later when Sophie managed publicity for a charity tennis event Edward was organizing. Their connection grew, and they began dating secretly to keep their relationship away from the public eye. However, the press eventually discovered their romance. In response, Edward directly appealed to the media, requesting respect for his and Sophie's privacy. As their relationship became public, Sophie started accompanying Edward to royal events. Despite public pressure, the couple took their time, waiting 6 years to marry. Their cautious approach demonstrated Edward's commitment to building a stable foundation for their future together, influenced by the turbulent relationships of his older siblings. In his early years, Edward's efforts to shield his private life sometimes had unintended consequences. A rare television interview about his relationship with Sophie, intended to quell public speculation, left some with a negative impression. His strong statements about wanting privacy were interpreted by some as arrogance. At one point, he even bluntly told reporters to mind their own business. Despite these challenges, Edward's dedication to maintaining a balance between his royal duties and personal life has defined his journey within the royal family. Prince Edward's decision to propose faced mixed reactions. While his frustration was understandable, his tone alienated some members of the public. After receiving their new titles as the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Prince Edward and his wife, Sophie, made their first public appearance on March 10, 2023. The couple met with members of the Ukrainian community outside Edinburgh's city chambers. Their graceful transition into their new roles delighted royal fans but also raised concerns about Prince Edward's health. Observers noted that Edward appeared noticeably thinner, leading to speculation about his well-being. Reports from MSN News and social media highlighted worries over his sudden weight loss, with some attributing it to illness, stress, or grief, given the loss of both his parents in a short span. Despite these concerns, no official sources have suggested that Edward is unwell, and Buckingham Palace reportedly assured the public that he is fine, though without concrete proof. Prince Edward was granted the title of Duke of Edinburgh by King Charles on his 59th birthday in March 2023. This title, previously held by their late father, Prince Philip, carried deep emotional significance. Many had anticipated that Edward would inherit the title, as it was reportedly Queen Elizabeth's wish before her passing. However, the process was not straightforward. Initially, King Charles considered saving the title for his granddaughter, Princess Charlotte, as part of his plan to modernize and streamline the monarchy. This decision reportedly upset Edward, who has been a loyal supporter of Charles, even during controversies involving their brother, Prince Andrew. Ultimately, Charles chose to honor Edward with the title, though some sources suggest the arrangement might see the title revert to the crown after Edward's death, rather than passing to his son, James, now Earl of Wessex. Interestingly, Edward's earlier title choice reflected his personal preferences. On his wedding day in 1999, Edward requested to be named Earl of Wessex, inspired by the character Lord Wessex in the film Shakespeare in Love. The Queen obliged, and Edward became the first of her sons not to hold a dukedom at that time. After their marriage, Edward and Sophie initially pursued private careers alongside their royal duties but transitioned to full-time royal roles in 2002 during the Queen's Golden Jubilee. Over the years, Sophie focused on supporting programs for women and children, while Edward championed the arts through his royal patronages. As the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie have taken on even greater responsibilities, continuing the legacy of Prince Philip. Edward follows in his father's footsteps while carving out his own unique path in royal service. Their dedication to their roles and enduring marriage have softened public perceptions over time, earning them respect and admiration. Their story reflects the challenges of balancing public responsibilities with private values. Edward's decisions and his defense of personal choices reveal the complexity of living under constant public scrutiny. This raises the question, would you leave everything behind to find your own path in life? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to enjoy more videos like this. Additionally, click on the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.